Yeah, that's right. School is out. School has been out since Friday, but thanks for tuning in today on Saturday. And we are here to enjoy, well, if you're above a certain age, I don't think you should be, but it's like, the vibes, the good times, March break. And like to give you a little bit of history, a lot of these kids have experienced the COVID restrictions, the absolute enclosure of your life, stuck with your immediate family and friends, and maybe the lucky ones who were breaking these COVID restrictions went out to go see some friends and do some, fun stuff on the side. But we got to talk about the mental break that we all need because I think the whole release of the Epstein files has given us an illumination on how the world works. So basically, a bunch of people who want like an excessive amount of money, they gain it by, unlawful or, you know, shroudy means, right? Like stealing intellectual properties, insider trading, etc. And now that these are the people who have been in the positions of power for so long that they can't wrestle away the idea that they have to transfer the ownership of the power, the government, the media, everything back to the people. And it's just the worst. We're watching mainstream air quotes news contradict the entire nation of America, and it gets even worse than that. Like we're talking about ongoing systemic. I think like it's an all-out brigade, an attack on Donald Trump and his presidency. And again, I don't think the guy's perfect, but like I just keep seeing it over and over again. Like YouTubers are saying, "Oh, it's over for Donald Trump. Donald Trump this, America did that," and like people are, like they have these expectations that America is like a dictatorship and Trump was just going to get in charge and pretty much do every single thing he wanted to do. And you can physically see people. Like you got to give it up to Asmongold. He's kind of like losing it, you know what I mean? He used to be like kind of nice. Maybe I don't know. I don't know the guy personally. But like I just see him as like every single chance he gets to take a jab at Hassan, like not directly, like he's not gonna just bring up Hassan out of the blue, but it's like when something has a relation to him or like follows back and come like leads back to him, it's just like it's all so convenient, right? And it's so funny because it's like the dynamic between these two, it's like as in gold, like he does his own shit, like he plays a lot of video games, like holy shit, he played that one with the lady with the bowl cut, and they're calling it like some kind of like um, one of those games. Yeah. Like the thing I hate about games like this, right, is that they're purposely made like at a subpar level, and because they're pushing an agenda and narrative, because you automatically like insult them and like bash their gameplay mechanics. Like let me give you an example, right? Like pretty much everybody like universally dislikes a lot of the character designs in Concord, right? But one of the major issues with having a hero shooter is it's like a character. Like you gotta level them up or her up, do RPG, things to like get different, abilities, ultimates, cooldowns, all that stuff. Like it's extensive. Like like I played what was it, Transformers, not War for Cybertron. I think it was Battle for Cybertron for the first one, and it's kind of like that, right? Where you just picked your guy, heavy guy, sports guy, jet guy, and then you take part in the fun of the video game. Yeah, you see, the problem with that was they only let you select a character for one round, and then they force you to switch. And then like they turn around, they say, "Well, you didn't like the game because it's like you're racist or you're sexist or you're homophobic or whatever, right?" And you're just like, "What are these character designs? And then why can't I just level up this stupid ass character that I picked?" right? And like the one that like really got to me, because it's like you see this commercial for it, right? And it's basically like what was it, Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy. There you go. It's basically Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm just like looking at it, and you see this character who's like the Hulk or whatever, the big person, and it's just the lamest character design ever. I'm just like looking at this guy, and I'm like, why am I looking at this? Why is this a thing? Like it's just like this multicolored, like I guess gorilla type blue looking idiot with like a fucking dome head. It just looks so dumb. And I have to bring that up because it's like you see this a lot. You see this with like people where they have, you know, they're just dirty or like, they don't know how to raise their kids and their societies are just, just nothing. And instead of, fixing their problems, they just are so quick to point out your problems, especially when they're facing criticism. So you'll just be like minding your own business and you're like, hey, you want to look at this? And then you look at it and you're like, yeah, it has its problems and this and that. Well, you're like this and you're like that. And like Hassan, basically, right? Like when Hassan was like confronted with the whole Islam is causing problems in Iraq and shit, he just snapped because it's easier for him to point the finger than to actually like rationalize, question why are so many people uh, all the time having problems with this specific religion. And even though I ran defense for it in the past, it's like it still stands to question like why are so many of a certain type of people like from specific ethnicities, backgrounds, and stuff causing all these problems? And the answer is simple. It's because they're not supposed to reproduce. You see, you have a cult that forces women to obey men, weak men. Like you see these mullahs, right? These clerics, as they coin themselves. It's funny how like they actually take quotes out of like the Bible and stuff. Like there's this one quote when this guy was confronted about like what if guys get 72 virgins, what do girls get? And then he just like quotes the Bible. And it was just like, you know, it comes to a point where did this religion come from? Where is it getting its like source material, and what does it want, right? And basically, it wants what ancient Judaism wants, or AKA Baal worship wants. It's this human sacrifice and like orgies and burning shit. It's just this weird kind of like decay, demoralization that our society has been inflicted with, and we're always told, "Oh, these are good people. We have to like respect their holidays. We have to respect their religion, this and that." And meanwhile, they don't respect women in general. But that's why it's just important to just take it easy, man. Take a break. Take a mental break from it because you can't make up people's minds for them. Trust me, man. Like I've known from the start that this was going to end very, very poorly for these people. And now that we are seeing just how desperate that they're getting, like I really, really thought that they had a significant ground force to muster like an attack of like whatever, right? Because you see all these reports and stories of these guys on boats and you can't identify them, and there's probably terrorist cells in every country, and CNN is telling you that this is a war that'll never end. And no, it's not. It's a war created by a bunch of weak men who don't want to lose weight, exercise, but they like to look at hot girls and stuff. And there's this one that like that's funny. I bring up the whole 72 virgins thing for martyrs and shit is because they actually go into detail to describe how they look and shit. Like, oh, their breasts never sag, and it's just like, oh, okay, okay, okay. I see what happened. I see what happened. So this is a guy, right, who wants to look a certain way in life, right? And this is why I tell men that like in order to combat like weak genes from the human genome, like if you can afford it and if you want to, like no one's forcing you, right? Whatever, right? Right? But you're living in a world where majority of the guys that or around you have been on dating websites. Now, in practice, there's technically really nothing wrong with that, except when you apply to everybody, and then you have that very like consumer esque relationship between you and the opposite gender, where you just like, okay, I go on this website, maybe I get like what is it, some dating gold pass or some shit like that. I don't know. I hear they had like things on that for like, tiers. So if like you're on Tinder, you're like you have tier one, tier two, and if you pay like more money, you get like hotter girls or like you get better replies or some shit like that. It's just like, digital pimpery at its finest. And who are the hoes? Well, both genders actually. If you adhere to that shit, right? Like it's just gonna hollow out society. And like the people who are, a byproduct of that, they're a completely different walk of life than the person who has to like, muster up the courage and go up to like girl after girl after girl and then finally meet the right one after years. And even still, like you have to, be vigilant about it because you can't just be idealistic and see something that's so convenient that comes to you and then say to yourself, well, you know what, now is the time, I'm finally lucky, whatever. Like you have to ask, where has this person been before in the past? And this is like a question nobody really wants to like, break down and shit, right? Like the cope with the red pill is they say, hey, what's your body count? How many guys have you slept with? Right? After the fact. Instead of asking that question, before you start a relationship with this person, you ask that question after you enter into a relationship with the person, after you've like dated this person and spent money on like whatever, dinner, movie, whatever, right? After. And this is why we have all these problems. And this is why the vast majority of the human race, mankind, does not need to reproduce because they just can't understand it. They it just goes over their head, and it gets even worse, right? Where equilibrium was something that like I think societies knew or like secretly agreed upon, right? Because it's the differentiations and stuff. Like sometimes you get like a kid and it doesn't look like the native tribe or whatever in ancient times, and it's just like they gets outcasted and shit or whatever. You have this very in group preference. Excuse me. Now, mind you, this is a very primitive way of thinking. Hence why I said ancient times or historical or medieval or whatever times, right? Feudal times. When you take that and you bring it into modern times with the population density, the prevalence and evolutions of pathogens, just newfound diseases, new man-made diseases to like, lock us in because Melania Trump, no, not Trump, what am I saying? Melania Trump. I mean, what's it, Melania? Why'd I say Trump for? Gates. God damn it. They both have the same name. That's weird. I think Trump's wife is Melania, and then Bill Gates is Melania. Melania Gates got the STDs, got the HIVs, and then we all have to stay in because, you know, Bill Gates owns a lot of land, and he owns like a lot of charities, and he's part of the WHO. He's just full of shit because it's one thing to say that the efficacy of the vaccines was like necessary to keep us all like, social distance and like all those restrictions, this and that. But then when you have Joe Biden giving a pardon to Dr. Fauci, fuck, what's his name again? Some fucking weird ass name. You know, there is no sense of maturity. There is no sense of like accountability. There is just people covering their own ass and you telling you a lie to your face like it's nothing. And this is what society's become. Like it's become like a society where cheating is as easy as like, just that. Like people cheat like it's nothing. People are infidelity, have infidelity. Sorry, they're really having these issues that well, to be honest, none of this shit is my business. But I'm only bringing this up as a determining factor as to why we have these problems with these guys going out causing all these problems and the rest of us shouldering the blame for it. So in the case of like, these guys from the Middle East, they were gassed up by, these fuckboys who had a lot of money. And some of them actually also have a lot of money. It's this weird, evolution of the brainstem where dwarfism doesn't allow proper growth, and most likely the brain is like swelling inside of the head and then, forming, onset of dementia at like a young ass age. You don't think about what you do. You don't think about what you say. You're very cranky and irritable. You're like a cranky ass old person. Like straight up. Like how is Hassan not a cranky ass old person? And then like by extension, how is like a lot of these leftists, a lot of these like you see like a lineup of people trying to blockade the ice and shit. Ice deportation. And I gotta like reiterate, right? A lot of these deportations, like even though on paper they are legal, like I think some of them are a little on the unnecessary side. Like I saw one of this guy and he got deported back to London. And he he wasn't even like, he didn't even really live his life in London. He was just like born there. And then his parents came and then like tried to, I don't know. It's like a weird situation and like, situations like that, like I guess on paper it's like you're legally supposed to do that, but then like why would you waste resources doing that? And I bring that up is because it's like that raw hatred of everything and everyone who wasn't American, and then like to affix that blame, and then to just become hyper patriotic as a result. And you're seeing this a lot as this kind of counter revolution to all these people trying to dismerit and basically disenfranchise America. But like doing that will destroy the world because they don't understand how much America has not only propped up a lot of countries, but like is part of that very connected network of global trade and commerce. Where if you get rid of it, all the companies and corporations and countries and nations and individuals that trade the US dollar are going to, and what's the currency that you trust? Like ask yourself that. If you don't trust the American currency, what do you trust? Do you trust the pound? I fucking don't. Nope. Do you trust the French dollar, the Italian dollar, anything in Europe? Maybe Poland, right? If they separate from the European Union fully, like I trust the Polish dollar, but like there's not a lot of places that your money is good. Hell, even Greece with their austerities and shit. I think like they're pretty okay now. It's a cool ass vacation spot. All these girls are checking it. Um, you can't really like trust your money anywhere. But in America, people are talking about put your money in gold, and I'm like that's not wrong or anything. But this kind of like idea that Trump or somebody in the government is to blame. Like I don't like Kash Patel and his like kind of dodging of the question. I know it's his job basically, but the dodging of the question of the Epstein and like trying to dismiss it, this and that. You know, I thought we seen the end of that, but unfortunately, we are only going to see the beginning of it because these people have reproduced. They are the benefactors of society. They benefit society in ways that we cannot understand, like, preventing terrorist attacks and, like, safeguard of crime and this and that. And, like, Trump, especially with this whole Iran thing, I can imagine if Trump wasn't president and he had Joe Biden or Kamala Harris reelected again, like what they would do with Israel after the onset of the October 7th attack, chances are the hostages would not be released. There wouldn't be no negotiations or two states. Palestine would not have a state. Um, the death toll will be much higher, and all these NGOs and PMCs and all these people who rub their hands together at the sight of this, and it's basically Metal Gear Solid 4. You have an ongoing war where people don't want to get involved. America is just feigning in this neutrality, but just arming whatever force it wants to, and then eventually those forces will either capitulate or betray and become a religious fundamentalist group, or even like turncoat, go to the other side. Like it's one of those ideas that aren't actually fought. They're meant to be determined via money and like influence. So the more money and the more influence you have, the like that's how the war is, the outcome of that battle is determined. And if you think that's like a little bit of far fetched, I'm pretty sure that's how the Cold War was fought. People don't like want to entertain the notion that the Cold War is over or whatever, but like Russia's a shadow of itself, and you know it became all too clear with that terrorist attack that Russia is just as weak and as like naive as every other country, if not more. You take in the poison of people who just can't. They shouldn't be allowed to reproduce. Like this is the problem that we're having, is that they're gonna have kids, right? And I'm not gonna prevent them from having kids or play God and be like, okay, we have to like, you know, go on a genocidal rampage and some stupid shit like that. No, I'm just saying that like that's the beginning. The intro to like catastrophe is like the absentee parentism and like the idealistic nature of like raising a kid with that religion, and then like boom, they gotta like throw down when this, when that, and that's how it is, man. You gotta take a mental break because they also have a lot of help. They have a lot of people out there who not only want that religion and other religions like it, like Sikhism, to just prevail and like basically commodify, the human race, women in specificity, um, cloud their origin, make it so that they're part of your bloodline, not somebody else's, that kind of shit. It's the erasure of people, and like, if you think that's anything new, that like, the Armenian genocide, the Balkans in general, like it's just like an ongoing thing that you see all around the world. And you could argue that in the past it was the opposite, like it was the Catholics or the Christians that were, taking part in that. And to that I say, well, that's just the most idealistic type of thing to say, isn't it? I mean, you set foot in these countries, right? You speak the language, knowing where it comes from. You know what these people believe in, and you drive by their churches, and sometimes, they stopped doing it to me, but like back in the day, you get these people coming to your door and just like giving you whatever. Like, come to this church, come pray with us, whatever, Sunday Mass, right? I was rude about it, but like, I understand like what it is. You know, it's just them, trying to spread the gospel as the religion tells them to do. Now, to the opposing religions, right? They hear this and they're like, no, I don't want to give up my stupid ass religion that like, my I left my country, like failed state, and I have to come live here like a fucking parasite, and then just like, constantly bash you and everything everybody does. And then like other people get in on it. They're like, yeah, these people from outside of the country are so right. We should totally like take their side against our fellow Americans and president and everything. But the reality is, it's like us, the women, the future, it's all ours. Everybody else who tried to plagiarize it just did that. It was a hollow copy. Sometimes you just gotta take that mental break, man. Take a long ass break. Have a good holiday.